What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Disc Golf Nerd Plastic Podcast. In this episode, I'm hoping to maybe catch up with James and get a little quick update from him out on the road, but I may or may not get to that segment. You'll see, I guess, if I get a chance to hook up with him in the next few days, I will tack that into the middle of this, and you guys can hear it. But otherwise, we might not be able to make it happen. He's playing Waco right now. I'm watching the FPO coverage. He actually tees off at 1:15. So, yeah, definitely not going to happen this morning. We talked about maybe chatting last night, but that didn't quite come through. So hopefully be able to check in with him soon, post-Memorial, post-Vegas, and also see how it goes in Waco and kind of go from there. But we'll see. Definitely seems like it's been an interesting experience for him so far, and I'd like to get his thoughts on any kind of surprises or anything that has gone on that he wasn't expecting, or just overall how it's been going. Try to keep in touch with him throughout the year. I have a new microphone that I'm testing. Hopefully it's sounding okay. It seems like it's working well on my end. I have a little mixer that I just recently picked up in order to make more bass videos, and I also realized that if I had this mixer, I can plug in multiple mics. I can send out one of the line out from that into my Zoom recorder that I usually use, straight into the recorder with the internal mic to podcast. This way I can actually adjust the levels and everything, have a separate mic, and send that signal out into it. The other beautiful thing about that I've discovered is that I should be able to just simply make a phone call with my phone plugged into the input of this thing and record it quite well. I did a quick test run the other day, and it worked out really good. So that should be a pretty easy way for me to keep in touch with James and hopefully bring in other people to interview for the show going forward. So, not a whole lot going on with me personally. I got a chance to play around recently with my buddy Big Anthony. We got out to Timber. That was great. It's been quite a while since we've played a good casual round at a good course. I've been working weekends lately. He works through the week, so I haven't seen him or Andy much at all. I haven't seen Andy or played around with Andy in forever at this point. It's really frustrating. But it looks like for a little while I may be off Sundays, which should open up a lot more time for me to do that. And now Anthony has a new camcorder, we're going to try to do much more filming as well. I'm going to try to put together some fun challenge rounds. Like I have a couple of Pro D rattlers. Me and Andy are going to take on the Rattler Challenge and play a short course with just rattlers. They look like tiny ultimate discs, essentially. I haven't even thrown one yet, so that should be fun. Things of that nature. We'll see. But hopefully it'll be interesting for you guys to actually see more of that. I'm trying to come out of my shell a little bit more. You guys have seen me start to pop up on the channel now after several years of not being on it at all. You've now seen me throw some discs. I may or may not try to put more throwing footage from myself in the review videos. It's kind of difficult. Not everybody is terribly skilled with the camera, so it kind of works out better for me to film. I'm not even very good with it, honestly, but I feel like I have a little bit of an idea. I'm getting better at how to track the discs, but it's tough. It's a lot harder than you think, especially with a cheap camcorder with a really small screen on it. There's no viewfinder, so I can't look into it to cut the glare and stuff. I have to watch it on the screen, and it doesn't work all that well for following discs, I gotta say. But I've been trying to make it work and make sure I'm including at least some throwing footage in the reviews going forward based on a ton of feedback from people over the years, and hopefully that has improved the content. And yeah, you may or may not see more of me on those videos. It's possible. It definitely makes sense that I should be on some of it, depending on how things go with filming and who's available and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I've been trying to kind of dip my toe in that. I'll be perfectly honest, since I feel like more of my core viewership listens to these podcasts, I've been really hesitant for a long time to put myself out there on camera because of my weight. I'm a big dude. Heavy. I've been heavy since I was a kid. I almost died when I was very little from a stomach disorder, and it badly damaged my metabolism from what I understand, and I just hold on to weight really easily. Even at times where I was working out super intensely when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I felt like I was in pretty good shape. I could run up hills, I was sprinting, I was playing soccer. I was still considered obese at that time. I could, out hike people that were, visually in better shape than I am. But I just hold on to a ton of weight. And I've always been afraid that if I put myself out there, fat jokes and rude comments are going to come in and might damage my motivation to continue doing this channel. So I kind of hid behind the camera for a long time, but I'm kind of over it now, and I'm ready to come out and kind of show you guys a little bit more of myself and see that I'm halfway decent form. I don't throw very far. My angle control isn't as good as it could be, especially on Anheuser, but you guys will see more of my throwing and more of me in general on camera in the future, and we'll see how it goes. I have not had any kind of rude comments just yet, but I'm sure they'll come eventually. Even with Andy, some of the people have said rude things about Andy and stuff on when he was on the broadcast for the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and it's just frustrating, and I know that sort of thing upsets me, and it might damage my motivation to continue doing the channel, but I also know that I have a whole bunch of really supportive, kind-hearted people here that wouldn't do that and wouldn't treat me that way, and probably more than a few of you guys that would actually stick up for me if anybody were to go there. So we'll see what happens. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. With YouTube and stuff, the comments can be really rude sometimes, and it's just kind of part of the deal. Anyway, big tangent. So if you guys saw my recent mail call video or my recent In the Bag and Beyond video, you might know that I'm kind of testing and reevaluating some things personally with my own bag. I'm kind of revisiting some older discs that I haven't thrown in a long time, or some molds that I tested a couple of years back that I never really gave too much of a chance to see how they really work for me. And I've been picking up random things that have kind of slipped through the cracks. Like I never tested a Roach, so I got a Jawbreaker Roach and I'm going to test tomorrow out at Milo. That sort of thing. So that's been kind of fun. I'm also stockpiling gobies. I just added my 11th goby to my collection. I may be having another one come in soon. I'm really afraid that Latitude's going to do something dumb and pull the plug on the goby, since I don't know of anybody else besides me and AJ Risley. I don't know of anybody else who throws them, even though they're so fantastic. Cole Glazer was throwing a first-run purple one when he was still on Latitude 64, but now he's not on the team anymore. So I really don't know of anybody there. Everybody's sleeping on the goby. It's such a great disc. I don't know. Maybe it's the Latitude overmold stuff in general doesn't seem to have much of a fan base for some reason. I don't really know why. They're good discs, but the goby far and away is much better than the Fuji and the Sarek and stuff in terms of my perspective. Sarek is a good flying disc. I've not tested the Zion. The Bryce was kind of blah for me. I never really connected with it much. It didn't really stand out to me as being anything special, but the goby is just magnificent. You guys are probably sick of hearing me talk about them. But another thing you might have saw in that little mail call video is that I have a new microphone, the one I'm testing right now. I also showed you guys this little cheap mixer that I picked up with some leftover gift card that my mom hooked me up with over Christmas. So the way I'm working it right now, as I sit here and speak to you guys, just out of, if you're curious, I have the mic plugged into the mixer. The mixer has a line out, RCA, I think, line out, and that is sent out into my Zoom H2N recorder. And the nice thing about this is I can plug in another mic, so me and Andy can talk and have separate mics, or me and whoever happens to be around, we can talk and have separate mics with separate volumes, which is a beautiful thing that I can do, and have everything dialed in nicely locally, which is great. I don't have to do it like in post or anything like that. And then also I noticed that if I plug the same RCA jack into the input, I can plug in my phone. And originally I was using that to like kind of play along to music and stuff, and I can also record that with my bass and stuff, which is really fun to do like play along videos and that sort of thing on my bass Instagram channel. And then I also noticed that I can just make a phone call through there. So that's how I hope to speak to James as soon as he has availability, is that once my phone is plugged in, I can just call him. He hears my voice coming through like it's on speakerphone, but we will hear his voice coming through electronically through the mixer and into the recorder. So it should work out really well and open the door for me to have many more folks come join me for a conversation here on the Disc Golf Nerd Plastic Podcast. So I'm really hoping to expand this kind of thing over the next year or so and really try to push it a little bit more. I love podcasting. I think it's great. I love to listen to them. It's fun to be a part of it, and I would definitely like to take this podcast a little bit further. If anybody happens to hear this that is experienced with getting podcasts onto Podcast Addict and iTunes and all that stuff, and how all that stuff works, and your experience with that, you'd be able to help me out trying to figure that out and figure out the best way to do that financially and make sure that I can push this podcast out on podcasting apps for you guys to download on your phone or whatever device, so you don't have to be attached to YouTube to listen to it. That would be phenomenal. So please reach out to me if you have any of that information, discgolfnerd1@gmail.com, or hit me up there for any other reason as well if you have a question or whatever. But yeah, really, anything you guys, if you have a question or whatever. But again, if you have any information about how that works, I've like Googled it before, but for some reason I just have trouble narrowing down exactly how to go about it or what the best site to use and how I want to do it. So that's something that I really hope to figure out sooner than later, because I'd love to be able to just tell you guys that you can just go ahead. I use Podcast Addict or whatever app you use that you can download this podcast and listen to it while you're out and about. I generally love to listen to podcasts when I'm like traveling, like on the bus or walking places, and I love that. It's especially great for doing chores and like menial tasks like that. Like if you're just washing dishes or anything like that, a podcast is a great companion for that. And I hope to be able to provide some of that content for you guys going forward. So another thing we need to talk about is the actual Disc Golf Pro Tour media rollout. I know a lot of people have spoken about this. I kind of put it off for quite a while because I was expecting them to put out more of an announcement in terms of who was going to be involved, what they were going to be doing. And we got kind of some ambiguous stuff about like, we're going to cover this and this and this and this, but no information about who's doing it, which is pretty much what everybody wanted to know as far as I'm concerned. We saw the media finally roll out at the Memorial, and there was a lot of talking points to get to about it, so let's get into it. The first day, live coverage for FPO was an absolute train wreck, but it was mostly due to an outage on YouTube. There was some kind of crazy outage going on because right around that same time that it was having so much trouble with it, I tried to log into my account to look at one of my videos. I couldn't get in whatsoever. So like when the stream was down and all those problems were happening, Johnny V got the note, somebody told him that the stream was frozen up or something, and he went to go log in to try to fix it, and he couldn't even get into the account. It booted him out, and then when he tried to log in, it wasn't working. I was experiencing the same issues, and it's a very known thing at this point that that's definitely what happened. There was a big problem, and that was probably why the stream was locking up. There were definitely problems other than that leading into it. The camera work was not looking very good. It was very shaky. They were having trouble following the discs. There is definitely a number of issues along those lines as well. The infamous bed sheet, we're not going to really go there. Everybody's talked about the stupid bed sheet. Basically what happened is the banner that was on the way got stuck in that snowstorm down there in like Central Oregon or whatever on their way to Nate and Val, so they didn't have any of their gear. That being said, I think it's more than fair to say that all of that stuff should have been ironed out weeks ago. If it was anything that I had anything to do with, I would have had Nate and Val with nice Pro Tour shirts, maybe a hat, banner, everything set up months ago, because they knew that that they were going to be doing the coverage, and they knew their plan at least. And I would like to think that they could have got that sorted out much sooner, but whatever. They didn't. They put up a bed sheet for some reason rather than just sitting in front of a blank wall. And the internet went crazy with memes about it and stuff. I was actually just commenting about it on Dixon's page, and we were talking about it or whatever, and I went back to check Instagram, and there was an ad for bed sheets, like 2,000 thread count Egyptian bed sheets or whatever. Like, oh my God, the internet is terrifying. There is no doubt whatsoever that my phone knew 100% that I was typing the word bed sheet into Facebook and whatever else, and absolutely used that through its algorithm to find an ad for me for bed sheets, and that is just terrifying. But this is the world we live in, guys. There's no fighting it at this point. It is what it is. If you have a cell phone, all of that stuff is happening. Don't get it twisted. Oh man, it's just crazy. So once the stream got back going, it was okay. And by the time MPO rolled around later on that day, it was definitely better. It was running pretty good. It looked pretty good. I'm not a huge fan of the way the cameras film. Like, the color looks a little bit unnatural and a little strange. It's not super crisp. Nate and Val did a good job, but they'll definitely get better and kind of have more defined roles as time goes on. They'll kind of settle into it, I'm sure. Although I'm watching it right now and Nate's not there. It's Jeff Spring and Val. I don't know what that's about. I'm also noticing that on the Waco coverage, and I'm watching, literally sitting here as I record this podcast, is that there are zero graphics. There's no graphics or like commercials that I've seen at all. It's just been raw golf footage, which I don't really mind so much, but I wouldn't mind seeing some scores or something and know what the hell's going on, especially since I'm doing other things. Like, I would love for the screen to pop up and tell me who's in the lead, if nothing else, because I have no idea. I think Paige is, and obviously I can look at UDisc on my phone and stuff, and I already did kind of check out, see what's going on. But yeah, curious lack of stuff. Huge shout out also to Johnny V. You know, Johnny V, he got basically fired from the Disc Golf Pro Tour on his own podcast with him and Terry, and that whole awkward situation with Steve that I really wish hadn't have gone down that way. It was just a really just goofy way to announce what was going on. I really wish they wouldn't have even done that. It just seemed like that just put the first bad taste in everybody's mouth, and it just snowballed from there, and it just really wasn't really a good look for anybody. But credit to Johnny V, you know, they asked him to come in and help them out with the memorial and do the switching, and he did it, and he stepped up, and I'm sure he worked his ass off, and he got the job done. So huge credit to Johnny. He could have told him to stuff it, and you're on your own, figure it out. God knows what they would have done if he did that, but you know, Johnny's a good dude, and he cares about disc golf, and he didn't want this to just, you know, completely fall apart, so he stepped up. I do not believe he is at all involved in the Waco, so perhaps the person that's doing it right now doesn't know how to do the graphics. Maybe there's some kind of stand-in person who was just very quickly trained on the basics of how to switch the cameras and stuff, doesn't know how to add in the transitions and the graphics. I really don't know. I'm interested to see what's going to happen later on with the MPO. But overall, once the kind of hiccups settled in a little bit, the cameramen got a little bit better at tracking the discs. They never really did that well at Memorial, in my opinion. But as we spoke about earlier, it's a lot more difficult than you guys think. Next time you guys are out throwing with your buddies, and then especially considering trying to film high-level disc golf with these guys throwing fast drivers really far on some of these shots, high up into the air. Next time you go out with your buddies, take a camcorder out there and try to film shots and see what that footage looks like. It's a lot harder than you think it is. Even just out in an open field, knowing where they're throwing, it can be difficult to track a shot. Sometimes it gets up into the sky and it just disappears, and you have no idea where it is. And then you try to film it and you catch the last little clip of it finish at the end of the flight because it comes back down and has some contrast. One of the things I've noticed for sure is absolutely crucial in filming discs for reviews is having contrast in the background, having a thick tree line or anything that is not the open blue sky. Because when a lot of discs, especially white discs or light blue or anything like that, if you throw it up into the air, into the sky, a lot of times it just disappears on camera and it's really, really difficult to track. Those cameramen will get better, any of them that are still in place moving forward. The camera work seems decent on the stuff I'm watching right now, but it was definitely left a lot to be desired. Very shaky, very just not experienced. And the problem with this whole Pro Tour situation from my perspective is that they painted themselves into a corner by telling us what they were going to do, and almost kind of like bragging about it. Oh, we have... I guess bragging's not the right word, but embellishing, is that fair to say? I could swear, and I don't necessarily feel like going and doing all the research to try to catch them out or anything like that. But from what I remember, the second part of the media policy said, you know, experienced camera operators or experienced coverage teams that have worked with disc golf before. And that is not what we saw. You know, the cameramen did not know what was going on with the disc. You can tell they were not experienced at filming the flight of a disc. People all these people want to say if I've gotten myself into trouble a couple of times because I feel as though Jomez is better in all aspects than any other coverage team, including people like Central Coast. Now, people will say, oh, other than the graphics and the commentary, the filming is the same for all these different... No, it's not. It's really not the same. It's not just about the graphics and the commentary is what I'm getting at. You can't just film whatever. You could take the raw footage that they shot at the Memorial from those Disc Golf Pro Tour cameras and give it to the Jomez team to edit it and put graphics and have big sexy commentary. It's not going to look as good as Jomez. There's no way. It's not filmed as well. The cameras aren't the same. It's not as simple as saying, oh, it's just all the bells and whistles and the graphics and the commentators. That's not true at all. The filming is hugely important to having a good product and having the experience to know where to stand, how to get the shot in the best manner that you can. That's a very important aspect of disc golf coverage that everybody likes to glance over and just pretend as though that's the only distinguishing factor is the commentary and the graphics, and that's ridiculous to me. I don't agree with that whatsoever. So anyway, getting on to the post-produced coverage. There are a lot of somewhat unforgivable problems with the post-produced coverage. They were trying to use the same footage from the live stream and edit it down into the coverage, but there were several missed shots during the live footage, and there was a bunch of shaky camera work, and there's only so much you can polish that up with graphics and whatever else. Also, one extremely unforgivable issue, as far as I'm concerned, is the audio sync. You can't have the audio out of sync. That is just not okay. You can't have somebody react to a putt before it goes in or too late after it goes in. All of that kind of stuff is just unacceptable to me. I don't understand how does that get by you? How do you not notice that that's wrong? The same thing with audio balance. I see so much YouTube content like these. Everybody's trying to do video blogs and stuff nowadays. And at one point they'll be having a conversation in the house and it's like kind of quiet, and then the next scene they cut to music and the music is twice as loud, and it's like, you guys, how did you not notice this? Did you go back and listen? Did you watch your own content before you post it on YouTube? Like, how do you not know that the volume is this wacky? I just don't understand that. So how do you not notice that the coverage, the audio sync was not correct? You have to be able to go back and at least watch some of it to see that that's lined up before you start posting stuff. But they were clearly scrambling to get this done as fast as they could. They also failed to provide as much coverage as they promised. So it's one of those things where one of the best things that Steve has done since the Disc Golf Pro Tour has come around is that he was very transparent and open and honest about what was going on. And then all of a sudden, this whole media change happened, and now they're trying to cover themselves. They're trying to PR the situation, and that's not how disc golf works. Disc golf is a modern sport that has come around and has been exploded via the internet and the kind of open and honest type of experience that happens on the internet. There's not as much places to hide. Disc golf is a sport that has come around in the internet era, where information is much more readily available. People can learn things. It's much harder to hide and BS people nowadays because of the amount of access to the various types of information. It's just not the same thing. So we don't want to hear false promises. I would much rather you say, hey, we don't really know. We're going to try our best. We're scrambling to put this thing together. We did our best to try to bring in Jomez. It didn't happen. We are going to do whatever we can to try to bring you guys the best coverage, but please stick with us. Don't write us off. We appreciate you. Just be open. Be honest about what was going on. As soon as you try to PR the situation, all of a sudden now it just doesn't feel the same. And now we want to catch you out. Now that you're giving these promises and you're putting out these vague posts about stuff, now people want to catch you out. Now they're already pissed off about losing Jomez because nobody likes losing things that they're used to and that they enjoy. We're already upset about Smashbox and Central Coast not being involved in the same way. And now everybody wants an excuse to say that this is garbage, and you did a terrible thing, and I can't believe we lost Jomez for this, and it goes on and on and on. And the reception of this coverage has been very poor. I think a lot of it is very justified, and I think a lot of it is just people who wanted it to fail because they were angry about the way things went down. I'm going to put it out there on the record right now that I trust Steve Dodge, and I know Steve has the best intentions at heart. Steve was not trying to screw over anybody. Steve was not trying to line his own pockets with this whole situation. He was doing what he felt was the thing that he needed to do to best continue to grow the tour and keep it sustainable for the good of professional disc golf overall. That is his main concern. If you guys don't think that's true, I think you're wrong. Like, he is definitely trying his best to make a sustainable tour that these players can get out and make a real living playing that is sequential, that makes sense in terms of travel, and all of the amazing things that Steve has done with the Disc Golf Pro Tour. He was not trying to, I'm just going to cut out Jomez because I want to make more money for myself. That is just not how he operates. The thing that's frustrating to me, though, is that also not how Steve has operated, is this kind of press release stuff that he's been doing rather than just coming and talking to the fans the way he always did. We don't see the Disc Golf Pro Tour talk with Steve Dodge like last season, where he was very open and honest and talked about problems that they had and how to work through them and whatever else. I would love to see Steve revive that. It's going to be tough, and the whole thing is just, it's really derailed everything in a way that really frustrates me. Personally, I think Jomez and Central Coast and the Disc Golf Pro Tour and Smashbox were all stronger together than they are apart. And it just feels like it's just eaten into so much momentum that we had building with Jomez was pulling in these huge amounts of subscribers, and they still are, and they're still growing like crazy, and they still have a giant fan base. But there's just a lot less high-level content for them to put out without being able to cover the good cards, the top cards, at these Disc Golf Pro Tour events. Also, another thing that's worth clarifying is that Jomez and Central Coast are not banned from the tour. They're just not allowed to cover the lead cards. They can put together a feature card. They can cover a third card or whatever. There's definitely opportunities for them to be there and be a part of it, but it just doesn't necessarily make sense for them to do that if they're not going to get the top cards that the most people want to see, or the winner, where the winners come from 9 times out of 10. So the whole thing is kind of a mess, but I feel like the audio sync issues were pretty bad. There were definitely some scoring discrepancies on the graphics from what I understand. I didn't quite catch those myself. There were some weird things like putting in slow motion of players that weren't on the card cut into the video. Like, I think Sias Elmore popped up at one point when he was no longer on the card, and they showed like a slow-mo of him driving as a kind of a transitional thing into another hole. Then they also had spelling errors, which are, again, just not... You can't have spelling errors in the graphics, guys. Come on. Oh, man. It's the same thing you see on social media when, like, somebody posts on social media for anybody, anybody, really. Even if it's just your own personal page. But if you're somebody, you're posting for... any type of professional entity, and there are typos or grammatical errors in your post on social media, it's just a terrible look. And having spelling errors on your coverage, man, not good. So that's a lot of the bad news. The good news, they're going to get better. They're going to keep getting better. They're going to learn how to turn it over faster. They're going to learn how to get everything dialed in, and it's going to work out. When I first started trying to add throwing footage and different types of images and whatever else with my setup, which is very limited and low budget, it took me a long time to figure out the flow with that. Now it's much easier. I have a kind of setup that I know how to do it, and I have a rhythm to it, and I know what needs to happen and where, and I can put together a review video much, much faster now. So they will get better. They will figure it all out. Another thing I would love to see addressed is the audio balance. I always would prefer to have a substantial amount of course audio, even if that's wind sound, whatever, balanced in with the commentary. When you watch disc golf and all you can hear is the commentators and maybe like a little tiny bit of chains when they putt out, that just is really boring for me to listen to. I would rather listen to like a podcast or something. I'm trying to watch sports. You want to hear that. When you watch soccer, you hear the chants in the crowd. You hear the crowd reacting. You hear the players yelling. You hear all of that stuff. Same with football. You can hear the quarterback. You can hear the players. You can hear the crunch of the hit. You want that. You want to hear the crowd. I want to hear the players' feet scraping on the tee-pad as they throw. I want to hear the chains big and loud. I want to hear the players make remarks. I want to hear the crowd react to exciting moments. You know how much more exciting a sports moment is when it happens, the commentators reacting, and the crowd, and you can hear it all, compared to just Nate and Val reacting with no audio of the crowd whatsoever, or just very little, or Paul and AJ on the post-produced stuff, and then you can't really hear the actual crowd reacting or the other players or the high fives or any of that kind of stuff. That frustrates me deeply. In fact, I would prefer if you said, hey, you can either have pro commentary, no course audio, or you can have only course audio, no commentary. Give me course audio 100 times out of 100. Personally, that's me. I'm old school, though. I remember Marty McGee. I loved his coverage. I think it's fantastic. I went back and watched some of it not too long ago, and I absolutely love hearing the players chatter and talk to each other and talk to the basket and talk to the discs and hook up and, oh, don't hit that, and all that kind of stuff. I love hearing that. That's fantastic. One of my favorite coverage videos of all time was from, I believe, Worlds, or it was either Worlds or the Hall of Fame. It might have been the Hall of Fame. It was like Ricky, Devin Owens, Austin Turner, and somebody else. Who was the other player on that card? I can't remember who the other player was. I'm blanking on it. But anyway, that video was filmed by Marty on the old Prodigy coverage, and he had such great audio that you could sit there with like nice headphones on, and you can hear the disc flying overhead, flying through the trees. You can hear all the players reacting, the chains. I love that. That makes me really happy, and I personally really enjoy that. So that's one big thing that I feel about everything, and that goes for everybody. I think even Jomez sometimes could bring in more course audio into the mix. Sometimes Central Coast will put stuff up that has no course audio, and it's just commentary, like Ian and then somebody on Skype. I have a lot of trouble with that. That just bores me to tears to listen to, perfectly honest. So I know they're going to sort these things out. I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think the biggest issue, once again, is that they told us, oh, you're not going to lose anything in quality. You're not going to lose anything. It's going to be as good or better. And it's just like, guys, be honest. Be honest. Jomez didn't get this way overnight. They weren't that great when they started either. They got better over time and built to what they are now. Same thing with Central Coast. Go back and look at old Central Coast videos. They're not that great. Compared to what they do now, it's hugely better and different and involved. You can't just come out of the gates that good. It's never going to happen that way. So telling us that you were going to is the problem, right? It's like you tell somebody you're going to pay them a huge sum of money that's unrealistic for something, and then even if you pay them a good amount, say you're like, oh, I'll give you $100 for that disc. Sweet, that sounds awesome. And then you end up getting $50 for it. That's still a substantial amount for that disc, but it's not what you were told you were going to get. So you're frustrated. So why are they making these big, grand announcements that it's going to be just as good as what you're getting when they knew it wasn't going to be? They couldn't possibly be so naive as to think that they were going to reproduce Jomez quality coverage with no experience doing so. And this is what I was worried about from day one, is that they were going to tell us it was going to come out, it was going to be nowhere in the ballpark, which is exactly what happened. And everybody just tore it to pieces. And I don't necessarily think that's fair. I wasn't happy with it. I was not leaving angry comments. I don't even think I gave a dislike on the video, because I think that's utterly meaningless as well. Dixon had said on his show, like, is that good? Is that good for disc golf, for the sponsor to go look at the Disc Golf Pro Tour coverage and see that it's 75% dislikes to likes or 80% dislikes to likes? Is that good for anything? Is that beneficial in any way? Does that help anything? Other than to voice your opinion, your frustration, it's utterly meaningless and really just damages everything. Makes sponsors less likely. It makes the Pro Tour look bad. It's just not a good situation at all. I understand it. People are frustrated. People have had something that they enjoy taken away from them. I'm right with you guys. I missed having Terry on the call. I missed having the traditional Smashbox coverage. The live coverage was good, and I think the live coverage was much closer. You know, if you're going to say, hey, we're going to give you the same quality or better, the live coverage got a lot closer to that claim than the post coverage did. We'll see how things progress. But once again, for the record, I support Steve Dodge. People saying rude things to Steve or trying to say that he's a bad person or anything personally negative or hurtful towards Steve, especially some of the really over-the-top stuff that, you know, you see in YouTube comments and whatever else, is just not fair and it's not reasonable. Part of this issue is definitely Steve's fault. He needs to take some of the blame for some of this. But I just want to put it out there on record that I know Steve has the best intentions of disc golf. Any interactions I've had with Steve have been very open, very, very solid, and very good. He reached out to me. He was one of the first people to ever reach out to me and offer to send me discs to review when he was still at Vibram. He sent me some discs. He sent me a signed letter thanking me for my contributions to the sport of disc golf. Here's your, enclosed is this disc. Please let us know when you post it. We'll get you more. We'll get you some more discs and whatever else. When I lost my job over the summer, Johnny V gave me a shout out on the show because I had mentioned it to him in correspondence through email. He gave me a shout out for it on the show. Just, we're thinking about you or whatever. Good luck moving forward. Steve Dodge heard that. He reached out to me and he brought me into the Disc Golf Pro Tour. I made some minute reviews and I was paid very well for those. It was definitely a very nice financial boost that helped me quite a bit. And he just wanted to try to bring me in, to try to help. He knew that I was a member of the community. He wanted to try to help. And even though we're not continuing that relationship this year, it was still an absolute honor to be featured on the Disc Golf Pro Tour coverage last year. And to be involved with it in any way, I was very honored to do that. And I still am. So for these people who are saying these mean things and rude things about Steve personally, just give it up with that, man. If you want to help, explain to them things like I broke down there. The audio sync issues, the volume issues, anything else that you think they can improve on. Give positive feedback or negative feedback, but constructive feedback is the word I'm going for. Give them constructive feedback on what's going on. Send Steve an email. Steve will read your email. Send Steve an email and say, hey, this is what I think could be improved. I know you're going to get better. Keep on doing what you're doing. He will probably respond to you. He will definitely read it, and he will take that into consideration. He's been like that since day one. Steve has known what they needed to improve on. He's been very open about that. And again, this gets back to what I think has been part of the issue with this, is that it's put a bad taste in everyone's mouth to have that go away all of a sudden. Right? To have Steve all of a sudden start acting like Yusi. That's what's been frustrating for me, is that Steve was the antithesis of the World Tour. The World Tour was all about big promises and grandiose talk and all this stuff that they completely failed to deliver. Oh, we're this international tour. No, you have 2 events in Europe and some events in the United States. How is that international? It's not an international tour. It's not a world tour. It was just a lot of grandiose, braggadocious stuff that never really ever ended up panning out. And that's what UC's really good for. A lot of hype, not a ton of deliverance on the hype, and then just folded and went away. Will we ever see the Pro Tour come back? The World Tour, will we ever see it come back? I kind of doubt it. I don't care anyway. It never really did much for me. And Steve was always the antithesis of that. Steve brought in everybody. He brought in a ton of different sponsors rather than one big sponsor like UC did, where it's just Innova Discmania, Innova Discmania, Innova Discmania, beat you over the head with it. And after the third hole of seeing an Innova commercial after every shot, I just was just like ready to turn it off. You know, I'm just, every time the hole finished, I'm hitting the skip ahead button on my remote, trying to jump past the same commercial of Eagle throwing for the 100th time that weekend. And the Disc Golf Pro Tour is anti that, and it has been forever. They brought in a ton of different sponsors. It's a very inclusive tour, and that's one of the most beautiful things about it. That's part of the reason why the problems with Jomez came about, is that Jomez has a main sponsor, and sometimes that clash with the sponsors of the events. And if you're Discraft and you're putting a ton of money into running a Disc Golf Pro Tour event and being a major sponsor for it, do you want to have somebody, the main coverage, be sponsored by your principal competitor, your top competitor? That is a fair thing, and that sucks, and I hate the capitalist nonsense that we have to deal with in this society, but that is the situation, and it makes sense. It's fair to say that you don't want the coverage for the top card of the Discraft Great Lakes Open to be sponsored by Innova. That just, that kind of stuff doesn't make sense in our world. So there had to be something that was done about it. I wish things could have went differently, and I wish, who knows, had Steve tried to do that from the beginning, maybe he could have secured Jomez and stuff before they became as powerful as they are now. Because make no mistake about it, 100,000 subscribers, Jomez, the ball's in their court. They can kind of do what they want to do at this point. They're still gaining subscribers. They're going to, since they're still covering all the national tours and other events throughout the year. They're still going to be the top dog. And that amount of exposure, that amount of income through Patreon, through YouTube AdSense or whatever else. And there's a lot of different opportunities there because of how big they are. Part of the reason they are so big is that they were given the opportunity to cover all of these major events. So they grew together and then they grew apart. That's life, I guess. What are we going to do? This is where we're at with everything. So that's my thoughts on the whole situation. I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that the coverage will improve and will continue to improve throughout this season and into the seasons to come. If you're just hoping that the Disc Golf Pro Tour will fall apart and fail because of this, you're that upset about losing Jomez or Central Coast or whatever your favorite media team was, I think that's an incredibly selfish and unrealistic way to feel. That's just gross. Why do you want it to fail? You don't want it to fail. Do you really want it to fail? Do you really want all these players to lose their ability to go out and make a living on tour? That's not smart. That's not a smart way to think. And we're just going to have to see what happens. And I know that they are scrambling and they're trying to pull it all together kind of last minute to get to the Memorial as well. So bear that in mind. Once they get their feet under them a little bit, the content will improve. Nobody starts off at the top. You got to start at the bottom and work your way up. I just wish they would have been a little bit more transparent about that going forward. Hey, this is what happened. This is the negotiations we had with Jomez. This is where it fell apart. This is why. Here's what we're going to try to do. Bear with us. We're going to do our best. We need your support. This is disc golf. We're in this together, and let's grow this thing. That's what I wish would have happened. Just so many different ways that it went sour on us. That it just put us in a really awkward position as a sport with the tour and for Steve personally. And it's just really unfortunate is what it comes down to. But the good news is, again, they will get better. They will take feedback of a constructive nature, and they will use it to improve the coverage. And we're going to see a better product for Waco, and we're going to see a better product for the event after that, and it's going to keep going. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. I still support the Disc Golf Pro Tour. I still support Steve Dodge. I know he is trying to do his best for the sport, and best of luck to Steve. I actually sent Steve a quick email the other day just to tell him that, keep doing what you're doing. I know you guys are going to get better. Keep your head up and don't get discouraged. Just show us that it's better. That's going to be the best way to do this. I think the best thing they can do now is try to bring in a little bit more of that transparency. Steve needs to stop trying to reply to comments and stuff on social media. Just let all that stuff go. Improve the product. Put your focus on that. And talk to us. Tell us what's going on. Explain what happened. Be honest. And talk about what your plans are going forward. And hopefully people can get back behind it, because it's just really unfortunate to see it all kind of fragment. The whole fan base is kind of twisted around, and a lot of fragmentation that's just really unfortunate, and has derailed a ton of momentum that's been built over the last couple of years of amazing coverage and fantastic golf. All right. Okay, so not sure if we're going to get a chance to talk to James again. As I said earlier, I will just add that into this somewhere in a cohesive way, if possible, if I get a chance to talk to him. But I think I've rambled quite long enough. Yeah, I've rambled long enough that this could be an episode unto itself. I didn't really talk about the golf at Memorial, did I? It was an absolutely ridiculous performance by the Crush Boys out there. They dominated the field. It's not a whole lot to talk about. I'm not really the best at breaking down the action. I leave that to other people. But yeah, congrats to Eagle McMahon, who just absolutely steamrolled. It's just ridiculous. The scores that he posted were absolutely absurd. 1 stroke shy of 50 under par in 4 rounds. What are you going to do about that? The only thing I can really say is I'm not one of these people who is like, oh, we need the courses to be harder. We need smaller baskets. Our players need to shoot worse, blah, blah, blah. But I will say, I think Vista and Fountain are a little bit behind the times in terms of their difficulty for the highest level. I think there's got to be something that can be done out at Fountain to make it a little bit more interesting for our top players, because it's just a bird fest out there, and it has been for years. I mean, you got to go low. You got to shoot low to be able to win that event. There's no doubt about it. You got to get a lot of birdies to be up there in contention for that event, and there's a lot of birdies to be had. There's tons of OB and problems to be had as well, but if you have the control, I think over a certain distance level and a certain level of control with your distance, it becomes a much simpler affair than it is for a player like me. I would probably struggle very badly at a course like Fountain Hills. It's very foreign to me in terms of the style of golf, and I don't have the distance to throw hyzer on a lot of those shots. So it wouldn't be the same. But for a guy like Eagle or Simon, a lot of those shots are quite simple to execute. There's not a lot of shot shaping that really needs to be done. It's a lot of just distance control and trying to stick landings on every kind of hyzer you could imagine. Flat hyzer, flat shot with finish on hyzer with an overstable disc, stable disc thrown with a ton of hyzer. Just every kind of hyzer you could think of is being thrown out there. And Eagle had them all working, and he crushed it. And just, yeah, absolutely ridiculous stuff, man. I will say, just real quick, as in terms of other things I noticed, Paul Macbeth definitely uncomfortable with the putter. He seems to be the most uncomfortable of all of the players that I know of that have kind of changed sponsors over this year. I think Ricky is far more comfortable with his plastic than Paul is right now. That makes perfect sense. He's throwing some of the stuff that he had already previously before he was on Latitude 64. I'm fairly certain he's got at least a couple of discs that are left over from then, Destroyers or whatever else, maybe a T-Bird or something, maybe some rocks, that sort of thing. So it makes perfect sense that Rick would be more comfortable with this move. Both of the Pauls seem to be struggling a little bit to settle in to the plastic. The Luna definitely seems to be having some issues for Paul. I don't know about you guys and your personal experience with it, but based on watching Paul and also my experience testing the Luna, I think it bounces and cuts through the chains quite a bit. It's kind of slippery in the chains. It bounces off the pole pretty good, and it will kind of turn and cut through the chains without too much issue. So that's kind of one little problem that I think Paul's having. It also kind of falls out a little early as well. It might be the kind of thing that they need to readjust the mold slightly, or he might need to get away from the kind of Paul Macbeth style of using brand new putters all the time, and he might need to break a few of those in, because they just kind of fall out. They go straight for a little while, and then all of a sudden they just come up short. Like my magnets just hold way straighter into the basket all the way than the Luna did during my testing. So we'll see how he adjusts to that. We'll see if any of the newer runs have a slightly different flight characteristic to them that would allow him to be a little bit more comfortable, or maybe he just needs to just figure it out and dial it in a little more. But it'll be interesting to see how him and Rick adjust going into Waco and for the rest of the season. But man, Eagles looking super dangerous already. With that performance at the Memorial, put everybody on watch, and not that they weren't already looking out for Eagle, because he's undoubtedly in the top 3 best players in the world. You can make the argument he's the best player in the world right now, and has been over the last couple seasons, and I don't think that's too hard to really argue for. But we'll see. I'm so happy. What all this boils down to, before I let you guys go, is that I'm just so happy the season's back. I'm stoked. I can't wait to just keep watching more golf. I'm beyond happy about the Portland Open being in town, and the Beaver State Fling is going to be tremendous. I just took off work for Sunday for Beaver State as per usual. I took off the entire event for Portland Open because I'm hoping to caddy for James one round, and I definitely want to watch lead card final round, maybe the second to last round. Can't wait for that. Blue Lake is a tremendous venue for professional golf. It's just going to be so fun to be out there and to finally experience the Disc Golf Pro Tour in person. I can't wait. I'm hoping to run into a bunch of different folks that I can, maybe I can grab some interviews with people or something like that while I'm out there, which is something I've always wanted to do, but never quite got it done. I have this Zoom portable recorder. It'll be quite easy to grab a quick interview with somebody here and there, maybe put together a podcast focused around that. And I'm just so happy to have professional disc golf back in my life. The off season was very interesting this year with all the different moves and all the different things that happened. But it's still just, nothing compared to actually being able to watch the golf and see how our players are attacking these courses. And I'm going to say it right now, hot take. I think we're going to see more varied winners of the larger events, pro tours, and national tours this year than we've seen in many years previous. We've seen a lot of dominant seasons from Paul and from Rick, and Eagle had a tremendous year last year. But I think we're going to see some different players up there vying for these wins depending on the different conditions and the different variables that go into it. You know, Heimberg had an incredible breakout performance at Vegas. I don't think that was a fluke by any means. He will be up there contesting for large wins throughout this season. Eagle, Simon's playing great. Paul and Rick, it's just so much fun. Kevin Jones is throwing the Prodigy Plastic really well. Seppo is going to be out there throwing giant bombs. I really hope to see Yuli get back to top form sooner than later. I'm really looking forward to all the in the bag videos we got coming. It's just, I'm so happy golf is back. I'm going to let you guys go. A lot of rambling there. Maybe I'll even just wait and try to get James on another episode post Waco and check in and see how the early part of his tour is going from his perspective. Much love to everybody out there. Thank you so much for listening. Keep in touch, and I will talk to you all very soon. All right. Cheers.